Russia. A land of extremes. It stretches across 11 time zones, a mix of cultures and landscapes. From Moscow to Lake Baikal, Russia captures our imagination. This country has seen empires rise and fall. Its history lives on in grand palaces and solemn memorials. Russia's natural beauty is just as amazing. Russia's story is full of triumphs and tragedies. From early Slavic tribes to the rise of the Kievan Rus, a powerful nation began to grow. Prince Vladimir's choice to follow Christianity in 988 AD changed Russia's spirit and culture forever. Moscow became the heart of a new nation. Under Ivan the Great, Moscow broke free from Mongol rule. Peter the Great, a leader with big ideas, opened Russia up to the west. He made the army modern, built St. Petersburg, and made the empire bigger. Long before Jesus was born, the Slavs lived in the plains and forests of Eastern Europe. These tribes started what would become the mighty Russian nation. Early Slavs were farmers, living in small villages and growing crops. They were also good hunters and fishermen. Over many years, these tribes spread far and wide, building trading posts. This brought new ideas and goods, shaping the culture of the Eastern Slavs. In the 800s, a new power arose, the Kievan Rus. This new nation, centered around Kiev, united many East Slavic tribes. Stories say a Viking leader named Rurik became ruler in Novgorod around 862 AD. His successor Oleg took Kiev in 882 AD, starting the Kievan Rus. Under Oleg and his family, the Kievan Ruses thrived. They made trade routes from Scandinavia to Byzantium. The Kievan Rus' rulers became stronger through their armies and smart talks. Vladimir the Great changed the Kievan Rus forever. In 988 AD, Vladimir chose Orthodox Christianity, uniting his people under one faith. This brought the Kievan Rus closer to the Byzantine Empire. Byzantine artists and scholars came to Kiev, bringing religious art, building styles, and a love of learning. Under Vladimir, Kiev became a center of learning and faith. The Cyrillic alphabet was adopted, starting a rich writing tradition. The Kievan Rus' entered a golden age. By the 1200s, the Kievan Rus' faced danger from the east. The Mongols, known for their powerful army, were moving across Asia. By the early 1200s, they looked west to the Kievan Rus. The Rus' rulers, fighting amongst themselves, were not ready. In 1223, a Mongol army, led by Subutai, crossed the Caucasus Mountains. At the Battle of the Kalka River, the Mongols crushed the Rus' princes. The Mongol win at the Kalka River was just the beginning. In 1237, under Batu Khan, a huge Mongol army attacked. City after city fell. The Mongols used a strong army, clever plans, and scared their enemies. By 1240, the Mongols had conquered the Kievan Rus. Kiev was destroyed, its beautiful churches and palaces looted and burned. The Mongol rule had begun. The Mongol conquest changed the former Kievan Rus. The Mongols were practical, taking wealth and keeping order. The Rus' principalities paid tribute to the Mongol Golden Horde. Cities like Novgorod kept trading. The Rus' princes had to answer to the Mongol Khan. The Russian Orthodox Church continued and even received support. The Mongols actually helped unite the Rus' principalities. The Mongols broke the Kievan Rus' apart. Moscow became a new power. Moscow's princes, descendants of Alexander Nevsky, were clever politicians. They played Mongol politics, making friends with the Khans while taking more power at home. Moscow's location was helpful during Mongol rule. Moscow's princes expanded their land, often taking it from their rivals. They welcomed new people, making Moscow bigger and richer. Ivan III, known as Ivan the Great, changed Moscow's history. Becoming ruler in 1462, Ivan fought the Mongols and took more control. In 1480, he defeated a Mongol army at the Udra River, ending Mongol rule. Ivan took over Novgorod and Tver, making Moscow the center of power. He expanded south, taking Smolensk. Ivan made big changes, bringing power together and modernizing Russia. He started talks with European countries. Ivan IV, Ivan the Great's grandson, took over a growing kingdom. His ascension marked the beginning of a new era in Russian history, filled with both remarkable achievements and terrifying events. Crowned Tsar in 1547, at just 16 years old he became known as Ivan the Terrible. His coronation was a grand event, symbolizing the start of his absolute rule. He was very ambitious, very cruel, and left a lasting impact on Russia. His reign was characterized by both significant territorial expansion and brutal internal policies. His rule was a time of huge growth, trouble at home, and a reign of terror. Ivan's military campaigns expanded Russian territory, but his domestic policies created fear and instability. Ivan believed he was chosen by God to rule and wanted all the power. He saw himself as a divine ruler, accountable only to God, which justified his ruthless actions. He split his kingdom, the Oprichnina, his personal land, and the Zemshchina, ruled by the usual council. This division was meant to consolidate his power, but led to widespread terror. This was supposed to make Ivan stronger, but it caused terror and problems. The Oprichnina became a tool for Ivan to eliminate his enemies and instill fear among the populace. The Oprichniki, Ivan's guards, had lots of power and terrorized the land. They were notorious for their cruelty and were instrumental in enforcing Ivan's harsh policies. They attacked anyone they thought wasn't loyal, taking their land and killing them. This created a climate of fear and suspicion, further destabilizing the kingdom. The boyars, once powerful, were destroyed. Ivan's campaign against the boyars was ruthless, effectively dismantling the traditional aristocracy. Even with all the trouble, Ivan kept expanding. His military conquests significantly increased the size of the Russian state. He conquered Kazan and Astrakhan, gaining control of the Volga River and opening the way to Siberia. These victories were crucial for Russia's expansion eastward. He also fought a long, losing war against Livonia, which cost a lot of money and caused more wars later. This conflict drained the state's resources and led to further instability. Peter the Great, Tsar from 1682 to 1725, changed Russia forever. Peter was full of energy and wanted Russia to be a major European power. He inherited a huge country, rich in resources, but behind the West in technology and military. Peter made big changes to modernize Russia. Peter loved the West from a young age. He spent time with foreigners in Moscow, learning their languages and ideas. In 1697, he traveled to Western Europe disguised as a commoner to see their advancements. He visited shipyards, studied weapons, and met important people. Back in Russia, Peter used his new knowledge to make big changes. He modernized the army, built a navy from nothing, and changed the government. Peter even changed how Russians lived. He brought Western styles to the court, built schools, and helped businesses grow. In 1703, Peter the Great started building a new city, St. Petersburg. Located on the Baltic Sea, it was meant to be a modern city like the great capitals of Europe. Building St. Petersburg was a huge project. Swamps were drained, canals were dug, and buildings were built. Foreign experts helped design the city. Peter made St. Petersburg a grand city. He built palaces like the Winter Palace and museums like the Kunstkamera. He made wide streets and squares inspired by cities like Paris. St. Petersburg was a huge change for Russia. It showed Russia's future as a European power. The city attracted ambitious Russians who wanted to modernize their country. Catherine the Great, who ruled from 1762 to 1796, continued Peter the Great's work. Born a German princess, she loved Russia and its culture. Catherine was a smart ruler. She kept modernizing and expanding Russia. She believed in the Enlightenment and wanted to use her power to help her people. She talked with famous thinkers like Voltaire and made changes to improve education and the economy. Russia grew bigger under Catherine. She took Crimea, parts of Poland, and fought successful wars against the Ottoman Empire. Catherine's reign wasn't perfect. She believed in Enlightenment ideas, but also crushed anyone who disagreed with her. The Pugachev Rebellion, a peasant uprising, challenged her rule. Even so, Catherine made Russia a major European power. At the end of the 1800s, the Russian Empire was at a turning point. Ruled by the Romanovs for over 300 years, Russia had changed a lot, but big problems were hidden beneath the surface. The seeds of revolution were planted by inequality and repression. Industry grew, but only a few rich people benefited. Most Russians were poor. Most Russians were peasants, tied to the land and treated badly by landlords. Many were in debt and had no education or healthcare. Factory workers in cities had terrible working conditions, low pay and long hours. Tsar Nicholas II, who didn't understand his people's problems, refused to change anything. He believed he was chosen by God to rule and saw any change as a threat. World War I in 1914 was the final straw for the Russian Empire. The country was already struggling with internal issues, and the war only made things worse. Russia joined the war for many reasons, including alliances and territorial ambitions. But it was a big mistake that would have dire consequences. The Russian army was badly prepared and lost many battles against Germany. The lack of proper equipment and training led to devastating defeats. Millions of soldiers died, were hurt, or deserted. The morale of the troops was at an all-time low, and the situation seemed hopeless. The war made Russia's economy even worse. Factories couldn't keep up with the demands of war, and the infrastructure was crumbling. The government printed lots of money, causing huge inflation, prices skyrocketed, and the value of the ruble plummeted, making everyday life difficult for ordinary Russians. Food became scarce because it was sent to the army. People in cities faced severe shortages, leading to widespread hunger and discontent. In all this chaos, the Bolsheviks, led by Vladimir Lenin, saw their chance. They promised peace, land, and bread, appealing to the war-weary and hungry population. Lenin was a clever leader who wanted to overthrow the Tsar. He used propaganda effectively to gain support and spread his revolutionary ideas. In February 1917, strikes and protests in Petrograd turned into a revolution. Workers and soldiers joined forces, demanding change and an end to the war. The Tsar lost control and gave up his throne, ending Romanov rule. This marked the end of centuries of imperial rule in Russia. A provisional government made up of liberals and moderate socialists took over, promising peace and better times. However, their inability to address key issues would soon lead to further turmoil. The February Revolution removed the Tsar, but Russia's problems remained. The country was still embroiled in World War I, and the economy was in shambles. The provisional government couldn't fix the war, the economy, or the widespread hunger that plagued the nation. The peasants' need for land, and the workers' demand for better conditions, were ignored. The Bolsheviks, led by Lenin, used this to their advantage. They promised to address these issues. Lenin knew it was time for another revolution, one that would bring radical change. He envisioned a revolution that would bring socialist rule and transform society. He promised peace, land and food to the war-weary and starving population. In October 1917, the Bolsheviks took control of Petrograd, seizing key government buildings. The provisional government fell quickly, unable to muster any significant resistance. Lenin and the Bolsheviks created the world's first socialist state, the RSFSR, marking a new era. This made many people happy as they believed their lives would improve, but it also started a civil war, pitting the Bolsheviks against their numerous enemies. Anti-Bolshevik forces called the Whites fought against the new regime, leading to widespread conflict. The civil war was brutal and devastating, leaving the country in ruins. The Bolsheviks made big changes to build a socialist society, restructuring the economy. They took control of industry and farms, aiming to centralize production, and made a central planning system to manage the economy. They tried to get rid of religion, seeing it as a threat to their ideology, and create loyal socialist citizens through education and propaganda. The Soviet experiment had begun, setting the stage for a new chapter in world history. Russia is also a land of amazing natural beauty. From Lake Baikal to the volcanoes of Kamchatka, nature is incredible. Lake Baikal is the deepest freshwater lake in the world, full of unique plants and animals. The lake's clear water reflects the mountains and forests. Kamchatka is a land of fire and ice. Volcanoes rise into the sky, covered in snow. Geysers erupt and hot springs bubble. Brown bears roam the wild lands. Siberia is home to the taiga, the world's largest forest. This huge forest is home to many animals. Wolves howl, and moose wander among the trees. In the Arctic North, the aurora borealis lights up the night sky with amazing colors. Russia's buildings tell stories of the past. From the Kremlin to the Winter Palace, each building has a history. The Kremlin in Moscow has been the center of power for a long time. Inside its walls are palaces, cathedrals, and government buildings. The Armory Chamber holds amazing treasures. Red Square has seen many important events. St. Basil's Cathedral with its colorful domes is a famous example of Russian architecture. St. Petersburg is a city of canals and palaces. The Winter Palace is now the Hermitage Museum, full of art from around the world. The Trans-Siberian Railway crosses Russia, from the cities of European Russia to the villages of Siberia. It shows the huge size and variety of Russia's landscape. From Siberia to Moscow, Russia's spirit is strong. Famous writers like Tolstoy and Dostoevsky wrote about the human experience. Tchaikovsky's music, like Swan Lake and the 1812 Overture, is beautiful and moving. Kandinsky's abstract paintings are thought-provoking. Russia's art continues to inspire the world. Russian traditions show a people who have overcome many challenges. Matryoshka dolls represent the strength of the Russian people. Orthodox icons with their bright colors show a deep faith. Russian folk dances show the joy and energy of the people. Russia's story is not finished. Its history, beauty, and spirit will continue to be important in the 21st century. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to support our channel. Peace and love to all.